They're yours. Hit that one more time. I am the number one determinant of the success or failure. Here we go. Of my students. Hey, y'all, you have a strong summer. Kick some butt next year. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you. That's the mindset. That's the attitude. Love you guys.
And we are live. Come on in, folks. Come on in. I see them numbers. Come on in. Let me know where you're coming from. If you've been with us for 84 weeks, let me know that too. You've been with us for 80, 75, 70. Let me know. Let me know if you've been rocking since May, the 1st of May, 2020. Right? Let me know where you're coming from. Let me see who we got here. We got Ricardo Giannis. Janine Wilkins is all the way from Alaska, as always. Demetrius Scott, my man, and he's keeping the notes, by the way, as well. So you can get those off my page, his page, my Twitter page, any of those. But he's keeping the notes once again, picked up from where Kimberly Wilson Daniel left off. We got Nicolyn West in the building, Jennifer Harris in the building, Maggie Panko, John Hirix, my man Michael Benton in the building, Tara Pickett. Angela Taranjo Rosales is in the building. Lily Lanier, Shalita Hines, Ohio Girl Jones is in the building. Gianna T. Bird, Chantel Walker, Melissa Olivia. Oliver, oh man, I messed that up with Melissa. Oliver, Nicklin West, Tashila Darjean is in the building. Ashley Rodriguez, come on in, hit the share button as you come in. Hit the retweet button as you come in. We're on 4 platforms, 2 on Facebook, 1 on Twitter, 1 on YouTube. Let them know we got the big time guest on today. So let's make sure that everybody's here to get this information. We got my man, Principal Andre Benito Mountain in the building. He let the staff know we're on. So, hey, principals out there, don't just hold this information for yourself. You know, we call it the Virtual AP Leadership Academy, but keep it relevant for anybody, including non-educators. So let your staff know. We on every Saturday, same time. We got Beleni Teklu in the building, Pamela Marcus, Kimberly Isaac Burrell. I don't know if I saw my wife, so I'm just going to shout her out just in case she was on here and I didn't see her. Kimberly Broughton Kafele, the queen, man. She just had her birthday on the 30th. She's in the building, right? She might have said, I didn't even log on yet. No, here she is. I see her right here. She's here. She's here. We got Rashad Davis from Vegas in the building. Dot Makita Jeever is in the building. My man, Josh Tovar, Principal Tovar, said he's on fire, blazing. Edwin Garcia, Jersey homie from Passaic is in the building. We got Juan Pablo Jimenez, that's Jimenez, out there in Plainfield. I said that one already. Paula Marie is in the building. Man, we got so many. My man, William Noel Sr., we were talking P-Funk the other night. You know, you got to be a funketeer to understand that, but we were right here. Then he put the shirt on, man. Aqua Boogie, Psycho, Alpha, Beta. Man, I ain't gonna do the whole thing. Listen, you gotta see, if you fake the funk, your nose will grow. And see, people gonna know, right? So you can't be faking the funk, man. You can't do it. So we got Gwen Guy, Scroble in the building, Stephen Johnson's in the building, my man. And by the way, those of you out there, like, what's he talking about? P-Funk and faking the funk. Google it. You got to know the king, George Clinton, man. I was in the Cincinnati airport. I posted this the other night, and they got this star for Bootsy Collins. It's going to be on their Walk of Fame for Cincinnati Black Music. They're going to install it in the summer, this coming summer, 2022. So shout out to Bootsy Collins. Marcus Morris is in the building. We getting ready to get rocking, y'all. Principal Ryan's in the building. Gene T. Bird, Yolanda McKinney is in the building, all the way from Little Rock, Arkansas. Dr. Roz Gaskins is here. Latasha Guy is here. I think I've done enough shout outs. Keep hitting that share button. Keep hitting that retweet. Keep letting those Facebook groups know that we are here. So let me formally say to everybody now, good morning, greetings, and welcome to week 84. Can you believe that? Week 84 of the virtual AP Leadership Academy. And as I say every week, I've been saying it for 84 weeks. I don't know about you. I can only speak for me, but I think I know because you logged on this morning. But if I can just let you know how I feel this morning, I'm on fire. Always got to let you know that, because the world is messed up, y'all. It's stuff happening. It's stuff happening in the U.S. It's stuff happening on the other continents. It's stuff happening. It's stuff happening in your schools. It's stuff happening in your homes, in your neighborhoods. Stuff is happening. However, you chose leadership. And that's why you show up on this broadcast. You chose leadership. And because you chose leadership, your fire has got the rage regardless of what's happening in the world. Because if your fire is not raging, then how does your leadership effectuate the change that you want to see? So for that reason, I say to you once again, I'm on fire. Woo! That's how I'm feeling. So let me give you this quick motivational message. My message today is, I've said it several times in different contexts, but I never use it as a motivational. My message today, you cannot lead from your office. Let me say that to you again. You cannot lead, particularly you cannot lead effectively from your office. If you're in your office, your school is being led by itself, is being led by young people, is being led by teachers, but it's not being led by you. So if you find yourself in your office, like, get yourself a mirror, right? And post it, like put it on your desk, but high enough where you see yourself when you look at it, right? And if you look at that mirror and you see you and there's your chair behind you and you sitting in your office, you got to pinch yourself and say, wait a minute. School is happening right now. Instruction is happening right now. Learning is happening right now. And I'm not a part of it for whatever the reason. I'm in my office, right? Like someone might say, but meetings are necessary. Yeah, they are. But as leader, you can schedule them meetings differently so that you can live in those classrooms. And that's not to discount the significance of that pre and post observation conference. And I'm not talking about observation season. I'm talking about the entire school year. Let's do it, y'all. Hit that share button, hit that retweet button. Welcome to all the first timers. And I know there's some out there, but do not be disappointed. You can see not just today, you can see all the previous 83. You didn't miss anything. Just go to YouTube, my channel, Virtual AP Leadership Academy. Subscribe to it. That's important. And then just binge watch all 83 hours. Just block out 83 hours of your life and just watch them all, right? Sunday morning commentary. This is 2 parts every weekend. To Saturday, the broadcast. Sunday, the commentary. That's on my Virtual AP Leadership Academy Facebook page. Always up by 10 o'clock in the morning. Those of you that write staff bulletins. When I was a principal, I always wrote them Sunday morning early and hit that send button at 10 so that staff could read it whenever they wanted to read it. They didn't have to read it on Sunday, but if they wanted to, it was there. Well, I kept the same practice in this academy. So it's always up by 10. Like and follow the Facebook page and read them all on Sunday mornings. The 2 books that accompany the academy, the Equity and Social Justice Education 50 and the Assistant Principal 50. Get them both. And I thank you guys. I posted the other day, 1,300 copies sold in the month of November. So you guys are keeping this book blazing. Keep on doing it. I appreciate you immensely. Let me see. Am I done? Lastly, the purpose of this academy. I need to remind some folks, as we get new faces on here all the time, hit the retweet button, hit the share button, let them know we in it. But I created this because I was disappointed on a personal level by the usage of assistant principals all over the country. Assistant principals doing discipline all day. That's insane. But Principal Kafele, there's disciplinary issues. No, they're not. There's some cultural issues that have nothing to do with discipline. The culture is the culture is toxic. The culture is out of whack. You got work to do there. The discipline is just the manifestation of a culture that needs your undivided attention. But no AP should be spending complete days disciplining kids. So I created this to address that to the AP, to the aspiring AP, but to the principal that supervises that AP, all the way up to central office to the superintendent and board members. That's why this exists. So lately, I've been bringing on guests since last June because I was flying solo every Saturday. And then I said, it's time to make a change. I need to have some other voices on here. So I've been bringing, I haven't been bringing just anybody on that's high powered. I've only been bringing on people who are either in leadership or who were in, I should say, principal leadership, or who were in principal leadership at some point. And somewhere later on, I don't know when, I'll start bringing on other people beyond principal leaders. But right now, it's so many folks who have done phenomenal work out here in principal leadership that I just want to keep bringing them on so you can hear different perspectives on different topics. So today, man, I brought on a heavyweight, man. I'm getting ready. Matter of fact, let me just bring him on up here right now. And before I even say hello to him, let me just say I brought on a heavyweight. I brought on Dr. Anthony Muhammad, recognized as, a lot of times we'll say one of the gurus in this or one of the gurus in that. I don't say one of the gurus when it comes to professional learning communities. With Dr. Muhammad, I say the guru as it relates to professional learning communities on the planet Earth, right? I don't say that with exaggeration or because he's here on the screen. I'm just giving you the facts, right? So Dr. Muhammad, good to see you.
Good to see you too, brother. I'm fired up just by listening to your intro. And I do want your listeners to know that I don't share the guru stage by myself. We're the only two African-American, period, to be honored as two of the top 30 global gurus. And it's an honor to be on your platform. And I just want to tell you before you start with questions of people how much I appreciate you. You keep people going on a regular basis, and your authenticity, your vigor, your energy, your insight, your intelligence has helped so many administrators and teachers, helped so many kids. So I want all of us to show you a debt of gratitude for putting on this institute, this ongoing academy, and for having me on your platform. So I applaud you, and I hope everybody joins me in applauding you, my brother.
I applaud you back. I appreciate your words immensely. They matter. Before I get started, folks, I want to read the bio. Dr. Anthony Muhammad is an author and international thought leader. He currently serves as the CEO of New Frontier 21 Consulting, a company dedicated to providing cutting-edge professional development to schools all over the world. He served as a practitioner for nearly 20 years. Dr. Muhammad served as a middle school teacher, assistant principal, middle school principal, and high school principal. His tenure as practitioner has earned him several awards as both a teacher and principal. Now, one of the things that I noticed is not on this bio that I just lifted from the website is that you were also recognized as Michigan Principal of the Year. Now, I have that right, correct?
Yes, sir. 2005.
2005. So let me say that again. I see Dr. Muhammad so humble, he don't even have that in his bio. I'd have it probably in flashing lights, right? So as the Michigan Principal of the Year, 2005. Dr. Muhammad is recognized as one of the field's leading experts in the areas of school culture and professional learning communities at Work PLC. Dr. Muhammad was recognized by Global Gurus organization as one of the 30 most influential educational thought leaders in the world, 2021. And that's the one we share that honor. So I'm honored to be on the screen with you this morning. Dr. Muhammad is a best-selling author. He's the author of the books Revisiting Professional Learning Communities at Work, second edition, 2011. Time for Change, subtitled The 4 Essential Skills of a Transformational School Leader, 2019. Transforming School Culture, How to Overcome Staff Division, second edition, 2017. Overcoming the Achievement Gap Trap, subtitle Liberating Mindsets to Effect Change, 2015. The Will to Lead and the Skill to Teach, Transforming Schools at Every Level, 2011. And he's published 26 articles in education journals and publications in 7 different countries. That's big time. You know, even though we're not at the end, we're at the beginning, but I got 2. This is the old edition.
It's the old school. Yes, old school Transforming School Culture.
I know it's the same title, but not this one. So when you order it, it'll be an orange and white cover. I don't have the new one. Got to get it.
I got it to you.
Yeah, I got Overcoming the Achievement Gap Trap, which we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the contents. But get yourselves your copies. If you got 2 devices there, watch us on this one. Go to the other one and just go ahead and order right off of Amazon all the Anthony Muhammad books. With that said, Dr. Muhammad, let's jump into it. You and I are going to be speaking at a conference together later. I'll get to that later on in the presentation. But our topic today, folks, hit the share, hit the retweet, let them know I'm ready. I'm done with all my preliminaries. We're talking overcoming staff division and more. And as I put this agenda together, I got more into the and more than I did the actual topic. So, you know, I told Dr. Muhammad that I'm known to go over, and I'm sure I will today. So you guys hang in there with me. Just, you know, stay locked in, right? We're going to be self-reflective because it's all about you. And by the end of the day, I promise you, Dr. Muhammad will have hit the ball out of the park while I'm sporting this Henry Aaron jersey, Indianapolis Clowns Negro League, but also had a woman, Mamie Johnson, known as Peanut, because she was so small, had a 33-8 record pitching, 33-8 pitching against men, right? In the Negro Leagues, played for the Indianapolis Clowns. I rock these every Saturday morning. Let's go. Hey, Dr. Muhammad, as an educator, who is Dr. Anthony Muhammad?
Well, education for me, or as an educator, was a means to an end. I'm really, at my essence, just a growing young man from the north side of Flint, Michigan. That's who I am. That's who I'll always be. That's just been blessed to have a platform to try to do some good. Growing up in Flint, growing up in the Midwest, I got a chance to witness the deindustrialization and the hardship that caused. And as a college athlete, I had aspirations, of course, like most major college athletes, of being professional, but that dream dwindled very quickly. So right around my sophomore year, I started to think, you know, what could I do? What could I do that would make a difference? And I thought about some of the experiences I had as a student. Not all bad, but enough bad to say that I needed to lend my voice and my time and my energy, that when I left this place, I would be able to say that I made a little bit better than when I found it. And schools seem like the ideal place to mold young people, to guide them. Whatever you want, you can produce. You don't have to wait and react afterwards. I wanted to be proactive. So I love being a teacher. I mean, I love the classroom. Middle school was my niche. And I still have young folks. I started teaching in 1988. I have young people that was their teacher back in the late 80s who still keep in contact with me, long before I ever got a stage to speak. And then I got kind of pushed into leadership. People kept saying you should be in school leadership. And I actually resisted it for some time because I really enjoyed the classroom. Then I got a chance to be an AP and saw so much that I could do. And like you said, I wanted to be proactive with discipline and not spend all my time reacting to discipline, to study the behavior patterns and the trauma of young people, and to prevent incidents rather than responding to it. I mean, I didn't want to walk in every day and have react to whatever circumstances produce. I wanted to manipulate circumstances for the positive.
Yeah.
and reached a point where I kind of outgrew that platform, where my vision started to clash with my principals. Good guy, just we had different visions. And then I spent 9 years as a principal. Loved it. So really, this all has happened organically, brother. I just wanted to do some good. I got tired of hearing people complain about young people in our community,
Yeah.
about what they weren't doing and what they didn't have, but yet really not doing anything actively to make it better. And though I had some really bad experiences, I had some good experiences as a student too. Flint was the birthplace of the community in schools movement, started by the Charles Mott Foundation. So we had community school directors that opened the school up after school, and arts and crafts and sports and flag football and all kind of things. And I saw so much of that uh, going to the wayside. I was like, somebody needs to do something about it. So that's who I am as an educator. I'm an activist who use education as my platform for activism.
I love that what you just said, because when I think about, I started in '88 as well in Brooklyn, New York City, and I looked at my role as being an activist. So it was just me. How can I reach young people, and where can I reach the masses of them? In school, in the classroom. So let me bring that energy with me into the classroom. Now, of course, there were some serious political challenges because I'm bringing a real activist spirit
Mm-hmm.
at a very young age into the classroom. But that was who I was, and it continued to be who I was throughout. So, of
Mm-hmm.
course, again, those challenges, but it was okay because I was firmly grounded. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying all that to say to the folks in the audience, what about you? Is there a degree of activism that you bring along with you into your practice as a teacher, as a leader, as an aspiring leader, whatever your capacity may be? So with that, Brother Anthony, my follow-up, when you transitioned into the principalship,
Mm-hmm.
was there anything, when you think about, even though you felt you were pushed into it,
Mm-hmm.
was there anything about going into that position that you thought within your spirit that I do have to do this for this particular reason?
Mm-hmm.
Was there?
It was the limitation of only being able to influence my classroom. So it was like having a cool spot in a burning building.
Mm.
There were so many things that I knew that could be better systemically, that I didn't have influence in my classroom, that it became more attractive once I got pushed into leadership to see what we could do as an institution. Now, where it fell apart, and I think you probably had a similar experience, as I started to look at school systems. I can run a great school, but
Yeah.
then I started to look at the school system and the
Yeah.
politics, the corruption, the split agendas, said this is about as far as I want to go in this system. Because my skill set, I'm not political at all. Politics get me in trouble. I'm just too authentic, and I can be too abrasive with the truth. I don't know how to play. I don't know how to play nice with the truth.
Yeah.
And in order to do, I know people that are, and I'm not putting that skill set down. They have a skill set that I don't have.
Yeah.
So I realized the limitation of how far I could go and actually be able to implement a vision, and that was at the site level. When I saw central office, I was like, nah. Especially in a district that has any size to it, and you add other layers to it. So that was, and then being able to influence people on the platforms that we use by teaching teachers and administrators. That was kind of my next level. I kind of skipped the central office piece. But what was attractive about leadership to me was the ability to expand a vision to create a community of activists, activist systems, so that more students could be more positively influenced.
You sound like me with that. Over the years, perhaps decades, I've been offered these superintendent positions, and I mean as recent as last week,
Mhm.
offered these superintendent positions, and for the same reasons, I can't do it.
Mhm.
It's just not in my DNA to navigate the system. I'm
Mhm.
not a systems person either. As a principal, I could block out some of that noise, but as
Mhm.
a superintendent, I don't think I could. I don't
You
think it's
can't.
possible. Yeah,
Yeah.
So they'll call and I'm like, thanks, I appreciate your faith in me, but I'm in my lane and I'm going to stay right here where I am. But consistent with that, because that's a very exhausting position too, and certainly not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, it can be very exhausting. Well, there are folks in this audience right now who are exhausted. I say that not because they told me directly, because I don't know a lot of the people on here. However, in just traveling to schools, the operative word is exhausted. I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. It's the teachers, it's the leaders, it's the APs, it's the whomever. I'm tired. This is a different context that we're working in from what we were accustomed to 2 years ago. So my question to you is, what advice do you have for folks in our audience who are feeling
go ahead.
feeling that exhaustion and perhaps questioning how much longer I'm going to stay in this business?
That's such a pertinent question, and I'd like to unpack that fully.
Yeah.
Number one, the world changed March 2020. And change is scary because it's inconvenient and it forces you to do some things we're unaccustomed to. So when talking about change and staff division and addressing changes is really the crux of my research. What's unattractive about change is the sacrifice you have to make for the potential benefit that change is going to bring about. So nobody's opposed to being in shape, but people anticipate the inconvenience of giving up their favorite foods, the pain of exercise. So change itself is one of life's biggest obstacles. Let me say this, and no one's the system that we're being asked to change was already broken before March 2020. It just was convenient and familiar. So a book I'd recommend to people to check out, if you want to look at mass movements, check out the work of Eric Hoffer. I'm a big sociology guy. I'm a big organizational theory. Eric Hoffer was prominent in the mid 20th century, and he wrote a book called The True Believer. And he said, how do mass movements begin? What about mass movements? Mass movements begin when dissatisfaction becomes greater than discontent. Discontent is just the simple recognition that something is not as it should be. Dissatisfaction means I am so disillusioned, I'm so upset about this reality that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to change it. Hoff said what produces dissatisfaction is a sense of power and efficacy. John Hattie found that collective efficacy was the greatest impactor on student achievement. The belief that my behavior, as you said in your promo, is the biggest determining factor in someone else's success. Efficacy just simply means the power to produce a desired effect. Well, let's look at the effect of the old system. Huge, egregious achievement gaps. Racial, socioeconomic, gender, disability disparities. The system was already broken. And as long as you keep holding on to a broken system, you're going to go down with that old system. It's like holding on to the Titanic as it's sinking. Let's start with what we're holding on to. Number one, Harvard said for years, since the mid 90s, that we teach too much and we assess too much. They said 92 to 95% of the American curriculum is absolutely unnecessary. And what have we done? We've taught a whole bunch of nice to knows. We made kids memorize it, regurgitate them on meaningless in school and out of school and state assessments. For what? For the currency of a grade. Grades are one of the most damaging things that we have in American public schools. It's really a label of whether I am desirable or not desirable. Now, what didn't bother us in the past? What didn't bother us in the past is that the kids who did not engage, as Doug Reeves calls it, schoolsmanship, they were acceptable casualties. You know, as a principal, as you pulled data and you looked at D&F lists, we blinked at that. That didn't cause a level of efficacy or dissatisfaction because enough kids bought into the system of schoolsmanship that we felt satisfied enough. Well, the kids aren't playing the game anymore. They say to heck with your grades. To heck with turning in your assignments. Oh my God, learning loss. These kids, they've always been that way. They just had enough. So why not focus on what's essential? Critical literacy aspects of student learning, numeracy, self-efficacy, self-discovery. In my former school, the greatest curricular outcome of our or standard in our entire school is helping the kid figure out, who am I? And we both know, brother, that for the last 20 years, the greatest litmus test of a school's success or failure was how we performed on one culturally biased state standardized test in 2 subjects. That system was doomed from the inception. We're just seeing the effect now. So if you're lamenting over how come these kids aren't like the kids before, how come I can't tell them I'm going to give them an F if they don't meet their deadlines, how come they're not doing worksheets, how come they're not enthusiastic, why are they distracted by other things? Because we did not design a system around the students' needs. The system was to produce a group of people that would maintain the socioeconomic, racial, and cultural status quo of an already biased society. These young people have had enough. And you're seeing rebellion from a system that was never really built to nurture them. So if you're exhausted, it's because you're swimming against the tide. How about picking a set of very essential academic skills, social characteristics, helping a kid with self-learning and self-efficacy, personalized learning, helping the child fall in love with his or herself and building the system around it. Now you have an equal partner with the student and the parents, and now you don't go home exhausted every day. We're exhausted because we're trying to hold on to a system that was destructive before this current era, and we're seeing these practices and these systems die on the vine. Change, the tide of change doesn't need us to approve of it. Just the energy and force of it alone. You either swim with the tide or you get swallowed by it. So we're seeing systems fall apart. Young people aren't going into teaching anymore. We're seeing mass retirements. We're seeing schools with half their staff uncertified. Why? Because we're holding on to the Titanic instead of getting on the lifeboat and producing a whole new system. It's time. So I know I was full on that one, but
No.
don't fool people. Shouldn't fool themselves in believing that it was great before the pandemic.
My first response or reaction to that is just, whoo! That's number one. But I don't want to leave this. We may not get through this whole interview, right? In terms of my questions, but I want to stay here. You said swimming against the tide.
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought about it in those terms. But as you said it, and as I was processing it, as I was looking at the comments that are coming in, that's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
We're swimming against a tide, trying to hold on, as you said, hold on to something that was already broken, as if we were hanging on to a sinking Titanic.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, you mentioned critical literacy, and you talked about who am I? That's where I want to let's go heavy on that. When you say critical literacy, what are you saying? Break that down further. It's
literate. If you look at the root of the term literate, it's synonymous with educated. Numeracy is just a numeric form of literacy. Numeracy, they're cousins of each other. It's the ability to critically think and use literature or numbers as a way to bring out what's best in human beings. So when I mean critical, I'm talking about things like academic and background vocabulary. I'm talking about the ability to read and decode for understanding and application. I'm talking about proper pronunciation and understanding of terms and meaning. We've made literacy so mystical that we're talking about kids in 4th grade, talking about 3 or 4 grade levels behind, because what are you teaching? Human beings are built for language and understanding. A baby doesn't have to be taught in a class the language. It's a part of our nature. Babies by 1.5, 2 years old are speaking and they have thousands of words in their vocabulary, and they didn't take one reading class or literacy class. It's built into us. So a lot of our kids, especially kids of color, come to school literate. It's more social literacy than it is academic literacy, but we don't take advantage of it. And by teaching the critical application of literacy, there's so many. Alfred Tatum has written about this extensively. Dr. Ernest Morrell has written about this extensively. While we're spending our time, there you go, while we're spending our time trying to make kids prepare for a standardized test, which means nothing. All No Child Left Behind and SIR are slick redistribution of real estate wealth. That's all it is. Because the school accountability rating and test scores and the racial homogeneity of a community make up 62% of a home's value. It's an asset. So while we've been breaking our neck to get better test scores, which are, if you ask Tom Gusky or any of the experts on assessment, state assessments are horrible assessments, but we chase them because of credentials, job security, how we look in a newspaper, and we're skipping what really matters to kids. At my former school, we had 8 critical literacy standards that was taught across the curriculum. You could come to my school and speak to any of my kids in my school, and they could look you in your eye with confidence. They had a deep vocabulary. They had a canon of literature that they had all been exposed to. They had unpacked. They could talk about world topics. This isn't rocket science. We can do this in Newark. We can do it in Detroit. We can do it in New York City. We can do it in LA, but we're too busy chasing credentials and standardized tests. The last year, we didn't give a test. And did it make a difference? No, because our goal is to help our kids become literate, self-assured, critical thinkers, producers, and assets to our community. Quit chasing test scores. Chase the development of every young person into a confident, ethical, literate contributor to their community. And the test score crap will take care of itself.
You know, because you did this, I'm comfortable in asking you this follow-up question. If you had not done this, then I would move on to a different question. And the follow-up question is, there's somebody, there's a pessimistic person somewhere out there, either live or will see this film, this video later on, and they'll say, okay, I hear you, you're making sense, but I am under test score pressure. So I know you and I both know that thinking is out there. However, when you talked about the rich vocabulary of young people, that was you. That wasn't the system. That was your leadership. So my question then is what can you say to that person out there who has that mindset? Maybe it's an AP that's kind of looking up at becoming a principal, but has that mindset that I don't know how I can make what Dr. Muhammad just said my reality because the pressure is real in my district. Holler at that person.
Great question. No Child Left Behind was passed, signed into law in February of 2002. Are you aware that that of the schools that are originally identified as failing, less than 1% have gotten off that list? How has pressure to raise test scores affected test scores? They didn't go up anyway. So you're accepting the anxiety and pressure for something that we haven't produced. So at some point, like Neo in The Matrix, you got to free your mind. Posse Sahlberg has proved it in his book, Finished Lessons. Called it the global education reform movement, the US style of high pressure on test scores. Look at any of the research on improving student performance. A focus on test scores never improves test scores. Never. A focus on developing young people as a residual byproduct at some point will raise test scores. My school's test scores were pretty robust because we didn't focus on test scores. We focused on the development of young people. And through the development of young people, there was a residual impact of impact on the state test scores. So if you focus on raising test scores, you probably never raise test scores. If you focus on the development of young people, at some point you probably will experience, there's a higher likelihood or higher probability that you'll experience higher test scores. But I'm okay with it either way, because a young person with a plan who is metacognitive and self-reflective of their own behaviors and their intellect and their choices. So I'd rather have the best test score I get is a young person I see in the mall that emails me and said, "Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. I'm a better person because of what happened under the school that was under your leadership."
Yeah,
That's what you want to focus on.
that matters. Let's say today's Saturday. So Thursday night, I was on a treadmill in a hotel. And one of my former students reached out to me. He's got a business at one of the malls here in Jersey. And our conversation was just a conversation on his next level.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there talking to him, and I'm thinking to myself, I haven't seen this young man in over the past 12 years physically. Of course, we communicate on social media.
Yeah.
But to have a conversation
Mm-hmm.
that I still have faith in my old principle.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's the reward,
Mm-hmm.
right? So years later, when the young people reach out and they still seeking your advice, I got the mirror up to people in the audience right now. Is that how you're being perceived? What is your leadership identity say in your school? What does your leadership presence say in your school? I got the mirror up for you.
Mm-hmm.
Will those kids still be thinking about you 10, 20, 30 years later in terms of the impact you made on their lives?
Absolutely. Okay, one more piece of that.
No.
A part of producing that type of culture is that as a leader, you have to model that efficacy. And what concerns me, and I know that you have a really large presence on social media, over the past 18 to 20 months, is seeing the level of venting and despair coming from our profession, the deficit thinking. If efficacy is the ability to produce a desired effect that never comes out of an environment of pessimism, the second you give up, game over. We used to have a saying in my old school that we care more about your success than you care about your failure. You'll never want to fail more than we want you to be successful. There's no way a 13-year-old is going to convince me that his or her life is hopeless and that the behavior they exhibit today is the behavior they're going to exhibit when they're 30. Because I know better. I'm your school father. There's no way. I got you. And that was the attitude of Mary McLeod Bethune. That was the attitude of Booker T. Washington. That was the attitude of Marva Collins and Jaime Escalante. And what concerns me is the culture necessary to produce that efficacious environment is in peril because of our incessant need to always say, "I'm tired. I'm fed up. I can't go any further." That's not how revolutions are. So you got to fake it till you make it, because what your brain is doing is producing a default pathway to your amygdala, which then produces cortisol and despair. And then you know that despair becomes contagious because human beings are full of electricity. And my positive electrical charge gets pulled by your negative electrical charge. That's why moods are contagious. So we're setting off a set of neurological, biological, and chemical impact when we bring a level of despair to our profession, and then we bathe it in social media. And I'm not seeing Mary McLeod Bethune's and Marva Collins and Javier Escalante's at the level that they should be. Watch what comes out of your mouth. Watch what you post on social media. If you need to vent, find a partner. Find somebody that is not going to let you go so far. But we are contaminating our own profession with all of this negativity and despair. I know it's tough, but we are the generation to change it. I just had to add that.
No, I appreciate you doing so. I should have told you all out there that you really gonna need this today, because he dropping some. People use nuggets. Dr. Muhammad dropping some bombs today, right? So you're gonna need the right to get all this down. But Dr. Muhammad, I'm thinking about myself, you, and folks out there who are in systems that run counter to our core beliefs, our core values, but yet we've got to be able to function within those environments. So I'm asking you, what advice do you have for leaders out there who are faced with laws and codes and policies and mandates, directives, and even superiors that contradict everything they stand for, contradict their values, contradict their beliefs? How does that person function within this environment?
It's going to be very difficult. I think something that you've written about extensively and you've mentioned, Brother Kafele, is identifying your leadership identity. Who am I?
Yeah.
In your reflective questions in the Principle 50, you ask people to reflect on my leadership identity. Who am I? And you have a choice to make. If you know who you are, how can I find outlets in my system to express that? And if you can, then great for you. If you can't, then my next piece of advice is how can you influence the system to allow you an outlet to do it? Because sometimes if you don't ask, you don't get. So there may be, if you don't see that there's support for your young men who are falling through the cracks, you might ask, can I start a mentoring program? What you don't have, you have an obligation to try to produce, because all great systems came from ideas that became manifest. Maybe you have some insight that they don't have. Do all you can within your system to try to produce allies, produce opportunities, engage in action research and experimentation and pilots to produce a better. They hired you to improve the system. But here's the last piece. If you've exhausted all of those and the burden just gets too heavy, you may reach a point, like many have, that I may need to go somewhere else, or I may need to produce my own. I am not afraid to say, dear brother, that there is going to reach a point in these states where they don't even want to acknowledge the pain and contribution of my ancestors, the contributions of people that don't jive with the person's comfort level, where we may have to withdraw. Dr. King, people love the I Have a Dream speech, but people forget that Dr. King was organizing a boycott of major corporations before he was killed. The Montgomery bus boycott was a withdrawal from, if you're not going to respect us, we may have to withdraw and see how our absence makes you feel. So you're not going to benefit and profit from me and treat me like crap, like crap if I'm a self-respecting person. So with all due respect, I'm going to do all I can within the system, within the parameters, to make a difference. But I fear, dear brother, that a day is coming where those of good conscience find that people who just have become impossible to live with, to be around. I mean, you're so vitriolic that you're going to pass a law that I can't even help people reflect on the mistakes of our country's past and the impact on my community, my people. And you're going to ask me to pay taxes and to participate and to vote and to die in wars for you to treat me like that? At some point, some of us are going to have to say, we may have to produce a protest system and see how our absence makes you feel. We're qualified. You're one of the most brilliant people I know, brother. You've led systems. I've led systems. The great Marcus Mosiah Garvey said, nobody respects a beggar. So I'll work with you as long as you're willing to work with me. But I want any district, any state, any superintendent to know my soul is not for sale. It's not. Young people are going to be educated in or outside of your system. And if I can't find a place where I can keep my self-respect, then I'll find people who are fed up and we'll produce our own system. Keep pushing. Keep pushing, North Carolina. Keep pushing, Oklahoma. Keep pushing, Iowa. Keep pushing. You might find that we're going to withdraw. And then what you going to do?
Powerful stuff. Hey, to the principals out there, the APs out there, this is why this platform was created. You can't be thinking solely as a disciplinarian. I'm gonna repeat myself. Here's some information coming out here today. This is the way you got to be thinking in terms of within my capacity as leader, does that translate into the empowerment of young people? Or are we just maintaining them until they graduate? You got to ask yourself that question. And that's why this content is so critical. You know, Dr. Muhammad, I'm gonna get way ahead of myself in the agenda because you said something, and then I'm gonna work my way backwards.
Yes, sir.
I am, and anyone that knows my work, I'm a staunch proponent of culturally relevant curriculum and instruction. And when I say that, I don't mean solely in terms of Black children, brown children being exposed to content that they see themselves, that they can racially, culturally identify with. But I'm also talking about the white child, the Asian child being exposed to that same content, right? So when the whole hysteria behind critical race theory began and perpetuated itself, for me, I said, this is just a smokescreen. This is not about what critical race theory is in its essence, because people misunderstood what it is. So now we start looking at history, which ties into everything you just said. And now the ability to legislate out of a school the history, the story, the reality of what it is to be Black and brown in America. That runs smack contradiction to who I am as an educator. Because if I can't be that guy, then it's like you took a fish out of water. I have to be that guy. I don't know anything else but to be culturally relevant to the youngsters that are before me, whether it be me as principal, whether it be me as teacher, or if some way God said to me, you got to lead a district, then as superintendent, right? So I'm saying to you, what are your thoughts then, kind of a continuation of what you just said on this CRT, critical race theory, hysteria, coupled with cultural relevance in a classroom learning environment?
I wrote in my book, Overcoming the Achievement Gap Trap, that we have an issue of functional hypocrisy, that we claim certain values and principles, but we do the complete opposite. That contradiction can't live forever. We said all men are created equal, but yet at the same time, there were men and women who are enslaved. We said that all people are created equal while women were oppressed and Native Americans were being slaughtered. And even take it down to school, we say that all students matter. We look at our mission statements, but yet ask a teacher to change a practice. Ask someone to give a student more time to complete a task. And we'll see if our rhetoric matches our appetite for implementation. But we're at a critical moment, dear brother, where people are tired of rhetoric not accompanied by action. So it's kind of the rubber hits the road piece. If we declare that we're part of a multicultural, multi-ethnic society, melting pot per se, then that needs to be the reality. As you said, dear brother, white students need to learn about the contributions of people not like them, the struggles of people, because we certainly learned about them. We've been culturally responsive to one culture, and that's the descendants of Western Europeans. We know all about their culture. We were culture, and that's one of the reasons they have done well in their schools, because there is representation. To ask for a balance in a society that's balanced should not be something that's controversial. If it is, then we have to question the rhetoric of the claim of a multicultural melting pot of respect. All we're doing, like Dr. King did on the steps, when he gave his I Have a Dream speech, is that we're just asking you to live up to the creed that you claim that we are created. How much more American could you be than that to make America live up to its creed? Well, if you're not willing to do it, then I have to believe your behavior more than your rhetoric.
Yeah.
And I think it reaches a point like Catholics reached when they withdrew and created a Catholic school system, like the Jewish community did when they withdrew and created a Jewish day school. Like Frederick Douglass said, that power concedes nothing without a demand. And we have to unify and leverage power. And we have to be dignified, self-respecting, and quit falling for Jim Crow 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. Enough is enough. When all human beings respect each other, have access to relevant pedagogy and experiences, our society is better. But there's a segment among us, brother, that, and we know, who don't want that. And they're using their authority to influence people in government to make decisions on their behalf. Either we leverage that same power or we say, you keep your racist institution. We'll produce something better. And we have everything but unity.
Yeah.
We have all the talent to do. We have all the resources to do it. And I think we'll reach a point we'll become dissatisfied enough. Just a quick little narrative. We'll go to your next question, brother, just to put it in perspective.
You good. You good.
Iowa has an you can't make people feel bad about the past law. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah.
This has been a long time coming. If you read my book, Overcoming the Achievement Gap Trap, this was started in Arizona decades ago with the law against teaching racial pride in the Tucson school district for Latino students. They called it an anti-American. It was anti-American to teach Latinos about their pride, their heritage, and their sojourn in America. And they declared those courses illegal. The legislature in Arizona did it against a policy developed in the Phoenix school that was culturally responsive in Tucson for Latino students. So this has a long history.
Yeah.
This isn't new. It's just gone national. A young man in Iowa told me, he's a white young man. He's about 28, about 6-7 year teacher, taught high school history. He taught his kids in Iowa, Frederick Douglass's What is the 4th of July to the Negro? Using good pedagogy, looking at argumentation. He gave kids different aspects, different critical lenses to view that Frederick Douglass letter. Looking at different perspectives, they got into debate. One of the young men in his class, his father's on the board. They gave his father the lesson, the Frederick Douglass, What is the 4th of July to the Negro? And they declared it as illegal under the Iowa law.
Mm.
You had to face the Board of Education. This young man's wife just had a baby, and now he's going to have to face possible termination because he taught white students a critical analysis of how Black people felt during the 4th of July, 1776.
Yeah.
And now his job is in danger.
Wow.
What else can you call that, brother, besides madness?
Yeah.
It's going to have a bad end. And if any of you are on the board, stop trying to legislate racism, classism, sexism, xenophobia. Stop. The people, every oppressive regime, if you've ever read their biographies, their last chapter is always the same. People don't operate under oppression well and for long periods of time.
And the interesting thing, that speech, I have this tradition. Every July 4th, I go sit outside here and I read the speech. It's a long speech,
Mm-hmm.
but every year is a different year. So I look at the world through a different lens, and I want to just look at it from where I am in that particular year, delivered in 1852. And there's so much I take away from that speech each subsequent year, but the speech itself is American history.
Mm-hmm.
The content and the reason that he gave it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're saying, you can't legislate that out of curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
It actually happened.
Yes.
Part of the American story, right? So just to continue with that, and let me say to the audience here, I know what your screens say, folks. They say overcoming staff division, right? But it also says and more. So here's what I'm gonna ask you guys. Here's what I'm gonna ask you guys. It's 11:55. I didn't even get to the topic yet, man. So listen, it's a nice.
This means we got to do a part. We got to do a part 2 then.
Yeah, we got to do a part 2. But y'all hang in here. We definitely gonna do a part 2. Y'all hang in here for a little while. We're gonna get to it. I know. I hit that share button. As a matter of fact, hit the retweet button. Let them know we still on here. We gonna definitely got to do it. Definitely gonna do a follow up. But let's talk about that achievement gap trap, and then after that, let's go into some of the overcoming staff division, because I got to make sure I get that on tape as well. Back in 1985, I read for the first time, and then multiple times since then, The Miseducation of the Negro.
Mm-hmm.
But prior by Dr. Carter G. Woodson, written in 1933. But prior to have read that book, I hadn't read many books in my lifetime. I've read just volumes of books now, but prior to that, reading wasn't my thing. Mm-hmm. And I discovered later it wasn't my thing because I wasn't seeing representation of myself in books in school. Mm-hmm. So it was no brainer for me as an adult as to why I wasn't interested in reading. But when I read this book, that paragraph in the introduction, which I won't go through the whole thing, but when he says, when you control a man's thinking, mm-hmm. you do not have to worry about his actions. And I'll stop that right there. Mm-hmm. I personalized that. And I said, man, he's talking to me. He's talking to me. He's talking to me. So when I decided to become a teacher, and here comes this language of achievement gap, I can't wrap my mind around it because I've been exposed to Carter G. Woodson. Mm-hmm. Had I not been exposed to that, then I may have fallen for it. But because I had been exposed to it and read the book umpteen times by the time I become a teacher, achievement gap, that makes no sense to me because I know the children are brilliant. I know the children are extraordinary and phenomenal, but I also understand about controlling a man's thinking. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, my question to you, like the title, I'm gonna put it on the screen. The title of the book is Overcoming the Achievement Gap, but in large letters, trap.
Trap.
Talk to us about, what do you mean by trap when you talk about achievement gap?
When we talk about a gap is a distance between two parts with a standard. And part of the trap is that we've made the standard proficiency on a culturally biased state test in just math and reading as what many educational researchers call the gold standard. That's the gold standard. High test scores, math and reading in a culturally biased, very discriminatory set of assessments. That's what everybody's reaching for. And if you're not hitting that target, the theory is there's something wrong with your school or there's something wrong with the children. Well, part of what I address and what I call the superiority mindset is what I call standard bearing. Why are we looking at that as the standard of excellence? Whoever controls the criteria controls how they assess you. If I control the criteria, who says that good character isn't a good outcome of schools? Yeah. What about entrepreneurship? What about creative thinking, critical thinking? We've allowed ourselves to be trapped into this narrative that a racially homogeneous school that achieves above the state average in math and reading on a biased test is the standard of excellence. And we've been exhausting ourselves trying to reach that standard that, in my opinion, is not worth emulating. I want to help develop young people and communities. At my former school, our students, as a 8th grade project, had to choose a community issue like alcoholism or homelessness. And they had to do this project where they did the research on the development of the problem, looked at community agencies and investments in addressing the problem. And they had like a big legislative powwow at the end of the year where we'd invite the media, where our kids would look at things like teen pregnancy, address the root cause of it. How do we produce more entrepreneurship? While you're chasing a jive state test score, I'm trying to help young people. So state of Michigan, you can keep your standard. You can keep your, we're trying to develop young people. And the other part of the trap is this feeling of low self-esteem or inadequacy because you're trying to chase a standard that's not worth chasing to begin with, and a criteria that's not worth reaching, and you're ignoring everything that's right in front of you. Schools that get test scores, good for you. Keep doing it. There's nothing wrong with it, but that's not the gold standard of excellence. As we just saw in Oxford, Michigan, when a young man walks in with a gun and who cares about test scores if you're taking a semi-automatic pistol and killing your classmates? I want to produce good human beings. So that doesn't mean you're better than other people because you get better tests. It means you're worse. We need to change the entire narrative. We've all bought into this false narrative. Good test scores, great school. Not so great test scores, bad school. And we've lost the essence of the purpose of education, which is the cultivation of our future through young people. That's the trap.
Love it. Love it. Hey, folks, I'm going to transition and let's talk about overcoming staff division. I won't go too long. I'm not going to do another hour, I promise you. But let's roll with it. But there's a page, there's a section, I should say, on a page. I'm using the old edition, Anthony, but
It's all good.
I wanted to just give this to them verbatim first, and then I got a series of questions for you. I got 5 questions, so it's not too.
Yes, sir.
Let me read this, folks. Dr. Muhammad said, I conducted formal and informal observations in 34 schools across the U.S. to try and ascertain how the staffs of these schools function within their school communities and how their behavior supported or hindered change that could create more favorable conditions for universal student achievement. These schools were in every geographical region of the country. 11 were in elementary schools, 14 middle, and 9 high schools. My findings shed a new and powerful light on what we know about toxic school culture, and more importantly, on how we can overcome staff division and turn around even the most toxic cultures. I believe that if school leadership or school leaders holistically understand the most important variables in unhealthy learning environments and arm themselves with strategies to uproot and replace the toxic elements, then they can be successful at creating healthy learning environments in their schools. Last paragraph. In my study of 34 schools and how their educators interacted in the school culture and articulated their beliefs through their behavior, I found a war of belief systems. And that's key, a war of belief systems. I found 4 distinct groups, 2 of which were actively engaged in a battle to make their belief system the norm of the school. Hear me well. Each of these groups had distinct characteristics and weapons, behaviors, and tools that they used to exercise their will. A third group found itself in the center of the battle, and a 4th group just tried to survive the school day. These 4 groups and their characteristics had a divisive impact on school culture. I determined that in order to transform from a toxic to a healthy learning environment, it is essential for leaders to understand and influence change within these groups of educators within the school. So I wanted to read that to you all to give you context for these questions that I want to ask. So we're talking about overcoming school culture, and we're looking at these 4 groups, broad groups of teachers or of educators within the school. And the first group you identified, Dr. Muhammad, you call them the believers. Mm-hmm. What are believers, and what is their impact on school culture?
Well, I think as I look at you and you look at me, you're looking at 2 believers. What categorizes people, and we think about culture, all cultures have subcultures, and we are experiencing this within our culture. They're like political parties. People try to influence the collective behavior of any institution or society. Democrat, Republican. You go to other countries, you have different schools of thought. Well, schools are no different. And William Waller wrote about this way back in 1932 in a book called The Sociology of Schooling. So this isn't new. But I don't think that we really understood it in a way that was applicable to schools. So a believer is a person who's driven by an activist spirit, and their objective is, How will my behavior positively impact young people to be better? Success for students is what drives my behavior, which means I'll have to have certain characteristics. I have to be optimistic, resilient, engaged, uh, reflect on my own performance and monitor my impact on students. So what you call a BAM teacher.
Mm.
Uh, it's some. So imagine a school full of people like that. They are destined to collectively be great. Well, part of the problem that I found is that every school, even healthy, even toxic cultures, had pockets of believers. But what I didn't find is that the prevailing ideology of the system was influenced and dominated by the ideology of believers. So the presence of believers doesn't necessarily mean the influence. And one of the challenges we face in school is that schools were constructed to be individualized. They're called classrooms and offices. Our architecture lends itself to individualism. So, Principal Kafele, if you're a teacher in Brooklyn and you're knocking it out of the park in your classroom, guess who gets blessed? Just your students. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a healthy school. You'll have a healthy class. Where believers were willing to step outside of the classroom doors and to lobby and influence others to make that ideology universal, what starts to happen? You start to develop a healthy culture as opposed to a healthy classroom.
Right.
And that's a believer. And my biggest critique in the book, in the study, is that believers tend to be apologetic child advocates.
Say that one more time. You broke up slightly. Repeat that for me.
Believers tend to be apologetic child advocates.
Okay.
Their advocacy only goes to a point. In an environment that's friendly, an environment that is warm, they'll be influential. They'll speak. They'll be engaging. But when you put them in a hostile environment, unless they're really confident, they tend to default to the influence of another group. I'm sure you're going to cover them. Call them fundamentalists.
Yep. As a matter of fact, I broke from your sequence and I wanted to go right to them and then come back to the other two. Okay. So give me a quick one on this one though, as a sub question to the believer. What advice do you have for an AP or principal on this call today toward creating more believers amongst the teachers that they supervise?
Model the behavior you want them to exhibit. What we found was, and in the frequently asked questions section of the second edition, that's a question that came up extensively between the first and second edition. We found that when leaders modeled the types of behaviors, attitudes, dispositions, theories that they wanted their teachers to exhibit, then the believers tended to be more confident. They had a blueprint to follow. They had a language and a lexicon and a vocabulary to pull from. So, brother, when you should do the assemblies with your students, and you were modeling for your teachers, sure you didn't do it with that in mind, but your courage gave them permission to be courageous. Your vocabulary gave them a vocabulary to pull from. Your mannerism with students gave them a mannerism to emulate. But when a leader is political, is panders to lobbies, when a leader lacks courage, what we're saying to our believers as teachers, that it's not a safe environment to be an activist. It's not a safe environment to be influential. My courage gives you permission to be courageous if I'm in leadership.
I love that. And I hope everybody out there heard that. It's you're modeling what you expect of others. That's in your deliberate, conscious behavior, right? The fundamentalists, I said I wanted to depart from your sequence and go right to the fundamentalists, which is the second category, who are the antithesis of the believer. And the fourth group you've identified. What are fundamentalists then? And what is their potential impact on school culture?
Fundamentalism is not a difficult concept to understand. Whenever there's a movement for change, there's always a contingent among that society who benefit from the way that things are. So I ask people the sequence of questions. Why did women have to organize a suffrage movement? Because men were comfortable with them not voting. Women emerging as voters posed a threat to an asset or a privilege that men had. Why did the civil rights movement have to emerge? Because there were people who were comfortable with the privilege of the Jim Crow South. So what I don't want leaders to be naive enough to believe is just because your idea is revolutionary, it's potentially very beneficial, that everybody sees that as an asset. I think we'd all agree that RTI, creating a multi-tiered system of support for students to get the support they need, who could argue intellectually or from a research-based lens that that's not a good practice? Now, why wouldn't a person want to engage? Why would I be, if I believe that my instruction is beyond critique, that it's comfortable for me to give kids one chance to demonstrate mastery and to summatively assess them and assign a grade, if I'm not convinced that that's a bad system or that it doesn't meet my purposes, then why would I want to voluntarily move to standards-based grading or RTI? Why? Because the inconvenience of the change to me is unnecessary if I'm satisfied with status quo. If I like working alone, why would I ever be excited about collaboration if I feel adequate working in isolation? So leaders can't be naive enough to believe that just because an idea has validity from the research or from exemplars, that everybody's going to be excited to engage in that process of change if they're satisfied with the status quo. Why would I want to engage kids in multicultural education if I'm satisfied with monocultural education?
Yeah.
I feel defined by it. I feel satisfied by it. So I didn't assess these people as malicious or evil. They're just so satisfied with status quo that change represents a threat to a condition that they don't feel is alarming. I'm okay with half my kids getting Fs. Why? Because they're lazy. They don't do my work. So why would I want to engage in learning culturally relevant pedagogy to get them more engaged if they just need to be quiet, shut up, listen to my lecture, copy notes, and regurgitate what I told them on the test? The problem isn't me. The problem is the student. So why are you trying to change me when the problem is not me? And it stimulates a level of passion. It stimulates a level of vitriol. And I found that fundamentalists tend to be more engaged in the culture than believers in general. Those believers make a conscious effort to be an unapologetic child advocate.
Fundamentalists. So I'm gonna keep moving. So what advice then would you have for an AP, an assistant principal or principal, toward making believers out of fundamentalists?
Well, one, it starts with understanding what stimulates that behavior. People typically don't do it because they don't like kids. It's the fear of the unknown, and it's the comfort of the current and the status quo. That's what makes people apprehensive. Well, in the book Time for Change, Dr. Luis Cruz and I outline what leaders can do to address those apprehensions that people who have strong aversion to change. We found that there are four critical reasons why people kind of spiral into fundamentalism. The first reason is a cognitive reason. They don't truly understand why the change that's being proposed is absolutely necessary. See, as a leader, I know why it's necessary, but a part of my obligation is to make it clear to you. Human beings are logical by nature. If any of us have ever raised a teenager, we always ask them, well, if your friends jumped off a bridge, would you do it too? We're trying to appeal to our teenagers' sense of logic. So, Principal Kafele, if my only methodology as a leader is the district office says we got to go to PLCs as our reform initiative, come on, guys. That's not intellectually satisfying enough. People have to know why working in isolation is damaging our kids. They need some brutal facts, as Jim Collins would call them. I call them opportunities to improve. Why is collaboration better than working in isolation? People don't jump into change without an informed insight into why the change is potentially better than what they're doing. So authority is not a good default for communication. I call communication a meeting of the mind. If I can make the compelling reason for change vivid in your mind, as vivid as it is in my mind, now I have an advocate. So who are fundamentalists? Many of them have grown accustomed to leaders who are poor communicators. Second reason, it's an emotional deficit. It's a lack of trust. You're a great communicator, Principal Kafele. I hear you. I know why we have to go to culturally relevant pedagogy. Here's my apprehension. I don't trust you. Why? Because you're my fourth principal in 5 years. This is our fifth district-wide initiative in 3 years. My apprehension isn't intellectual. My apprehension is emotional. Emotions are fragile. And if I give you my trust and my trust is violated, every time my trust is violated, I become more apprehensive when it comes to change. Not because I dislike you. You represent a position of leadership that I just can't trust. So the second critical skill of a transformational leader is the ability to build relationships and build trust. I call it a connection of the heart. I'm not doing it because it makes sense. I'm doing it because I trust your character. I trust your model. I trust your authentic example. I trust you. And if I trust you, I trust what you asked me to do. The third vacuum or breach, we call it how. And how really is capacity. Communication addresses the issue of intellect. I don't understand. The heart addresses emotional. Well, the third is I might not know how to do what you're asking me to do. So my apprehension isn't intellectual. It's not emotional. It's capacity. I told superintendents as we went into the 2021 school year, after the pandemic, I appreciate you bringing me to do some workshops on culture, but you're about to take 100+ years of American schooling and put it online. You need to invest in your teacher's capacity on how to use Google Classrooms,
Right.
how to use the streaming video through YouTube. Some people become pessimistic and withdrawn, not because they don't think the change is necessary, they don't trust you, they just don't know how to do it. We call those, Dr. Cruz and I, rational reasons for resistance. There's a breach that hasn't been met. There's something, the need that hasn't been met. Let's go to level 4. If you've done those things, you've given a clear communication of the purpose of change. You've considered all of the emotional breaches and apprehensions, and you've really made a solid attempt to create trust among your faculty. You've invested in capacity and resources and training and systems and structures. At that point, you are within your rights as a leader to expect application. And for those who don't engage, we call them level 4 fundamentals. I call them the over my dead body people. Dr. Cruz calls them cave people, colleagues against virtually everything. I don't care how you explain it. I don't care how many olive branches you extend. I don't care how much training you provide. There may be a handful of people that all that works is, at this point, now that you've been given everything you need to be successful at the endeavor that we're collectively engaging in, I'm not asking you, I'm demanding. And they'll do one of two things, brother. They'll engage or they'll leave.
Well, I'm gonna keep it moving. You know, there's a third group, and I went out of sequence, but this group you call the survivors, a smaller group than the previous 3. What are survivors, and what is their potential impact on school culture?
Well, we're seeing survivors grow exponentially since the pandemic. It's a person who doesn't have bad intentions, but what do we start this dialogue off with? I'm so tired.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can make it till Christmas. I don't know if I can make it to Thanksgiving. I don't know how much long. This despair starts to become an illness. And it's described in the literature as workplace burnout. Workplace burnout was identified in 1984 by the American Psychological Association as an illness. It's workplace depression. Any of us who've experienced this since March of 2020, I don't need to give you the list of symptoms. Lack of energy, being withdrawn, despair, hopelessness, and the only thing keeping you engaged is the fact that you have to eat. You have bills to pay. You have obligations. So we have to address the conditions that lead to burnout. And what's sad is, legislatively and systemically, we're adding fuel to the fire. In the second edition, the chapter that got the biggest overhaul was the chapter on survivors.
Mm.
I shudder to see what the data looks like since COVID. This is a statistic. Pre-coronavirus, Hope Mifflin every year does what's called the State of the Teaching Profession. They do a survey on optimism. This was 2019. In 2019, only 34% of American teachers were optimistic about the future of our profession. That was pre-COVID.
Wow.
So when you add impossible tasks, poor pay, lack of self-care and emotional awareness, too many complex tasks, revolving door in leadership, it eats away at the human condition until it starts to have a psychological, a physical, and a tangible impact. I want to say this when we go to the next one. Take care of yourself because people need you. You have family and friends. And I tell young teachers this all the time. 30 years of depression is not worth a retirement check. You're the only you'll ever have.
That's right.
Recognize the signs early. Get away from toxic people. Try to get to the root of what's causing your despair. And surround yourself with people who can support you and make it better, rather than people that add fuel to the fire and leave you a pile of dust.
Wow. That's heavy duty. That's heavy duty. You know, I totally jacked up the sequence because when I went to fundamentalists after believer, but that other group is the second group, which is the tweeners. What are tweeners? TWEENERS, folks, and what is their potential impact on school culture?
They're huge, and they're probably the group I'm the most concerned about. These are people that are new to our system. They're probationary culturally. They don't understand how things operate. And we found it takes about 2 to 4 years for them to figure out where their place is in the system culturally. The data is alarming. We are losing teachers and potential new teachers wholesale. I'm working with systems, universities right now, brother, who are considering closing their colleges of education because of lack of enrollment among young people.
Yeah.
The summer of 2021 experienced the highest percentage of eligible retirees actually retiring, coupled with one of the most scant hiring pools of new teachers. The two most important corollary statistics in the study to organizational health was a retention rate of new educators, and we've studied their job satisfaction rate over the course of 3 years. So if you want to know how your school culture is doing, are new people staying, and are they becoming more optimistic the longer they stay in your system? If they're leaving, that's a bad sign. If they're staying and becoming more pessimistic, what you're doing is you're producing a new generation of fundamentalists. So if I'm in leadership, the people who are new to my system, they deserve the lion's share of your attention. Why? Because you get a chance to actively construct the future of your culture. They're afraid of you because they know you control their longevity through your evaluation. Make it okay for them to make a mistake. Make it okay for them to be authentic and transparent in their communication. Because I'm telling you, if you don't hold on to the ones you have, go look at the labor data for the group that's following. What they always say, the devil you know is a whole lot better than the devil you don't know. At least the people you have, you can develop.
Yeah.
I'm working with systems right now, probably you too, brother. I'm working with a district in Michigan where 60% of their staff are long-term subs. It's coming to a town near you.
That's frightening. That's frightening. I'm seeing the same thing. I don't think that I've seen 60%
Yeah,
But
that's an extreme example,
yeah,
but
but
it's
the
one we
numbers,
never would have dreamed of 10 years ago.
no, numbers are frightening across the country. And I got a whole lot of thoughts and ideas about how we change that, but that's for another conversation. You know, one of the things you said, and we're just about done, folks. Hang in there with me because I still want to get to them BAM questions. But one of the things you said in the previous, when we were talking about the survivors, you said authority is not a good default for communication. And I just want to repeat that because there's someone out there that probably needs to hear that a second time. So let me just repeat it. Authority is not a good default for communication. So because you're the leader, because you're the boss, because you're the supervisor, the director, whatever it is, that's not the default for effectively communicating to your staff. And you got to always keep that in mind. It's not just because you have a title doesn't really mean a whole lot as
Yeah,
far as
exactly.
effective communication, right? So, remember that always, because, I always talk about the way you perceive yourself, your leadership identity versus the way you're being perceived. And if they're not in alignment, then however you're being perceived, that's who you are in the face of that of that staff person.
Absolutely.
So keep that in mind. I got this one more, then I want to go to the BAM. This is real easy. There's, I've been wanting to ask you this for years, Brother Anthony. There's a quote that everybody attributes to you. And I want to, this will be my first time asking you, is this your quote? And the quote is, culture eats strategies for breakfast.
No, that's Peter Drucker.
Is it? Okay, because everyone says, because Anthony Muhammad said.
And I quote,
so
I'm a secondary citation. Peter Drucker wrote that.
Okay, glad to know, because you get a lot of props for that, national.
Yeah. But yeah, I always cite Peter Drucker for saying it first.
All right, good stuff. Hey, folks, let me hit Dr. Muhammad with the BAM questions real quick. Don't leave me just yet, because I want you to know how to get in touch with them as well. Dr. Muhammad, these are just one word or one sentence if necessary, right? 21, we go through them like that. I call them my BAM impact questions. Number one is education on the right path for underserved children.
No.
Can true equity occur in America's schools for Black, brown, and other underserved students?
Yes, if we have the collective will and desire to implement what we know produces that. The research already exists. The roadmap already exists. It's do we have the will to do it?
Does your work, now I mean you, does your work contribute to the progress we desperately need?
I hope so. I think that's more for somebody else to say than me, but I hope so.
If you could do a reset on your life, would your line of work be different or the same?
Absolutely the same. This is like a dream.
Why do you continue to do this work?
Because I have 6 children and grandchildren who are on their way. And I believe as a human being, your job is to make life better for others. And I found my lane. So that's why I do it.
What keeps you fired up about this work?
The fact that people like you and those who log on to this workshop, there's a whole lot more good than there is bad in the world. And I just want us to be more united and more forceful in our demands. So that's what keeps me going.
What do you love about the work that you do?
The fact that I get a chance to influence a broad spectrum of people. I've had a chance to work on all 6 inhabited continents and learn so much. It's a personal benefit, the benefit I get to provide for others. It's just a dream come true.
What do you dislike about the work you do?
Travel, politics, and disingenuous educators.
What has been your greatest victory in this work to date?
Writing a single book. I never thought I'd write a book, much less 8 of them. So the second I got my first book, that was my biggest victory.
What was your greatest mistake?
Greatest mistake? Spread myself too thin and not building enough capacity to push the work and building it. I'm doing it now, but I can't do this by myself. And I didn't invest enough in others to add intellectual value to it and to branch out and to really create a movement.
What did I say this? What has been your greatest challenge?
Greatest challenge, hold my tongue.
Are you proud of your first year as an assistant principal?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Are you proud of your first year as a principal?
Yes. Yes.
Who inspires you in this work?
Several people. Educationally, you're one of my inspirations. Dr. Michael Fullen, Rick DeFore, and Rebecca DeFore, who since passed. Dr. Bob Aker, Mike Maddows, Ken Williams, Dr. Freya Rivers, who was the first master teacher I ever got a chance to see. I could be here all day. Dr. Juwanza Kunjufu, Dr. Asa Hilliard, Dr. Geneva Gay, Dr. Shiraki Holly, and the list goes on and on. It's just so many. I'd be here for another hour.
Yeah,
Anybody I missed is just because for time.
Yes, yeah, I hear you. What are you reading right now, Doc?
Several things. One of the things I'm rereading is Charlotte Danielson's framework for effective teaching. In fact, I got it right here. Dr. Luis Cruz and I are producing a based on Time for Change, a book similar for supporting administrators based upon our Time for Change framework. Wow. Also reading personally the diary of an economic hitman about the World Banks and IMF, how they manipulate monetary policy. So I read for information. I don't really read for pleasure. So I really like to dive into things around politics and world events, but also education. So those are the two things that are most prominent. I just finished Zaretta Hammond's just recently, Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain.
Okay, yeah, she might be on here. I know she checks in.
Yeah.
What book do you recommend for our viewers? And we got APs and principals on here.
All of your books. But there's so many others I'd add. Learning by Doing, if you're really interested in PLC, and a lot of you have it, blow the dust off of it and read it. Learning by Doing is a great manual for understanding the PLC at work process. Michael Fullen's The Moral Imperative of School Leadership is a great book to add. I would highly recommend the Overcoming the Achievement Gap Trap book that I had the pleasure to write. I think it's more relevant today than it was in 2016 when it was published. It's my favorite book I've had a chance to write.
Wow. Almost done. Number 17, what do you want to accomplish that you haven't accomplished yet?
To produce a cohort of people as passionate about having influence on schools, to really duplicate success in others. That's what I have left to accomplish, and then I can retire.
I hear that. Are you number 18? Are you satisfied with where you are now professionally?
I say I'd have to because I never thought I'd be here. So this is way beyond where I thought it. So to say I'm dissatisfied would be a lie because I never thought I'd be here.
What could you say to a viewer out there who continues to face closed doors?
Try to knock on doors that you believe will have a greater likelihood of opening. Sometimes you're knocking on the wrong doors. Create relationships. Let people know what you have to offer. And then as methodically and intentionally as they choose you, you choose your district. You choose your opportunity. Let them know why you're so valuable that they just can't live and function without you.
Love it. What could you say to a viewer out there who's lost their fire?
Then you have to get out of places that douse your fire. Get around people, as you said this morning, who are on fire. Yeah. Plug more into things. Read, grow. We are being the architects of our own despair by using bad practice, by hanging around people who are pessimistic. If you want to, you got to be around things that light your fire, not around things that take away your fire. How are you spending your time? What's your thought process like? How are you feeding yourself?
Love it. Last one. If Dr. Anthony Muhammad was a word in a dictionary, what would be your definition?
A young man from the north side of Flint, Michigan, who didn't know enough to care about other people's opinions and to care about power, that other people say he should be afraid of and isn't. Somebody who since a child never feared death, never feared being ostracized. It's just been a charmed life, my brother. And if I was to go away today, I can go away knowing that I feel good about what I've been able to accomplish. And I don't need validation. I don't need praise. I don't need a big check. That's authentic. This is who I am. I'm just a young man from the north side of the mightiest city on, I think people from Newark might disagree, but from the greatest city on the planet, Flint, Michigan.
I hear that. The Flintstones. I hear that.
Flintstone.
That's it. Hey, well, Dr. Muhammad, this has been a powerful, powerful, powerful hour and 36 minutes. I appreciate you answering the call and being a part of us, and looking forward to your return. Let the folks out there know how they can reach you, how they can follow you, how they can book you, how they can get your books, everything.
Okay, thank you. Well, the best clearinghouse for all that would be my website, which is www.newfrontier21.com. On that website, it has a link to follow me on Twitter at NewFrontier21. There's a link to follow me on Facebook. There are articles that I provide, contact information. Just contact us. The email comes directly to my staff who can look at booking. Also, the website is the one that links for my books. All that on the website, www.newfrontier21.com.
Excellent. So reach out, folks. A lot of information there. Reach out. You know, Dr. Muhammad, you and I will be keynoting together with a couple other people at the Deaf Ed National Conference put on by Principal Andre Benito Mountain out in Georgia, out in Atlanta. So that's if you want to register, that's Deaf Ed, DEF, as in Frank, DEFED magazine.com. Once again, DEFED magazine.com. That's July 16 and 17, I think. July 16 and 17, we'll be down there in Atlanta together. So come on and join us. Again, deafedmagazine.com. Register today and get it out of the way. There may still be a window open for you to send a proposal if you want to present. I'm not sure. Just go to the website and see. And if so, then maybe we'll even be able to see you present while you're down there. So again, Dr. Muhammad, I'm honored, thankful for you being here, and continued blessings to you in the work that you do.
You too, and thank you. Thank you.
Sir.
Thanks for being a light in the darkness, my brother.
You too. I thank you. Let me put you backstage for a hot second. Don't leave me yet. Hey, folks, I'm glad you stuck around. We're here. So I'm just closing out to say thank you for being here. And, you know, I'll be back next week. My guest next week will be my man, Dr. Mark Abraham, former principal out in Buffalo, New York. Wrote the book, What Success Looks Like, and he'll be my guest for the hour and some change, Dr. Mark Abraham. So be sure to join us next Saturday at 10:55. Once again, if you don't have them, the Equity and Social Justice Education 50 and the Assistant Principal 50. I'm not even going to show you the rest of the books. These are the two that really coincide with what we're doing right now. So get your hands on both of them. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, principalkafele.com, the publisher, ASCD.org. Visit the virtual AP Leadership Academy YouTube channel to see all 84 videos. Go to my Facebook Virtual AP Leadership Academy Facebook page to see the commentary tomorrow and to see all the commentaries. I've written now, I think, 48 commentaries to date over the past 48 weeks. So that's part of what we do. And then make sure that you're eating right. Make sure that you're taking care of your body, your temple. Get out there and do some miles. I'm going to do about 2 or 3 today and tomorrow. Make sure your diet's right, you're eating right. And as Dr. Muhammad said, make sure you align yourself with the right people. Toxic people are not always healthy. So with that said, I'll see you next week. So you have a great week. Have an extraordinary week. Have your best week yet. Peace. Flip it backwards. Peace. Thumbs up. Cock your fist back with me and let's count to 3 together. 1, 2, 3. Bang! I'll see you next week at 10:55.